Welcome to Conversations with Crosswinds Counseling. I'm your host, Curtis Smith. Every week on this podcast, we talk about all things mental health, sometimes stress or anxiety. Perhaps you're burned out. Well, this is the podcast for you. We sit down with the wonderful counselors at Crosswinds Counseling and have a great conversation every week. Let's dive into this week's episode. Hey there, welcome to Conversations with Crosswinds Counseling. I'm your host, Curtis Smith. Joining us today is Sheronda Moore, one of the amazing counselors at Crosswinds in Indianapolis. Sheronda, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
We're talking about a popular topic. You know, it's September, it's kind of back to school season and fall, and it's kind of one of those times in the calendar where we have a lot of new things. And so people may be considering counseling for the first time. And so, Sheronda, today we want to talk about kind of that intake process, what to do when you're starting counseling. And it can be a little bit daunting, even scary for some folks. Certainly the mental hurdle of, should I see a counselor and all of that, but also the process.
Yeah.
What do I have to do? What does this look like? How does it start? All of those things are on the minds of clients as they start seeing us. So what could you share about what that intake process should look like?
Yeah. Once you've kind of gone through the process of even finding a counselor, right? Because that's a whole daunting experience. So you found a counselor, you maybe gotten an appointment, and they send you all of these forms. Couple of things, you're probably going to get some informed consents, which will kind of go through some of the legalities, maybe social media policies, confidentiality, et cetera, kind of the rules of how that's set up. And every practice may be a little different. But then you're probably going to get an intake questionnaire. And so to kind of demystify that first session, it's typically called an intake session across most of the disciplines. And they're looking for some information from you. That intake may have just some normal demographic information, age, gender, education, maybe even your address, phone number, emergency contacts, etc. They may be also interested in whatever medications you might be taking, any medical history. Probably the most important part from what I would be looking from that intake is, what's the presenting concern? Yeah. Why are you seeking therapy? Yeah.
Right. So some of it is just purely functional, name, address, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But some of the stuff that you're talking about now really helps your counselor understand where you are, where you're coming from, what the situation is right now, why you're here. And that's important work to kind of set up a good base for the start of counseling, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, your therapist is trying to get an idea in probably an hour to 90 minutes of who you are and also to what the concerns are and how they impact you as a person and how you're functioning. And so that intake may differ between practices and organizations. Some of them may be a little bit more specific. Some may also be more, kind of questionnaire related. Some of them may also include basic assessments. They're getting information about your anxiety or maybe depressive symptoms as a baseline. A lot of things can happen within that first intake, and that may vary. Once you get to the session, say you've already kind of gotten your appointment, you meet up, you at least find the place, whether it's online, you got the link. Your therapist is probably going to refer to said intake, but then they'll also maybe present a session that may not necessarily be like what you thought going in. And so I think that piece, once you jump all of those hurdles, is probably the most important part, because that first session gives your therapist an idea of who you are and how to help you. And those questions may be more personal. They may feel more formal, but they may also be very informal, like a conversation as well.
I assume both in any intake forms and in that first discussion, as open and as transparent as people can be, the more it helps the therapist, the more it helps the actual counseling process.
Yeah. I mean, honesty is crucial. You want to be honest with your therapist. And that may be a little difficult, right? You don't know this person. Maybe you've seen a profile You maybe have some educational background from them if they were that specific, but that honesty piece is crucial. They may ask you questions about maybe your education and what you do for work, but then they may be more personal questions like, are you married? What have your relationships look like? One of the questions I always ask my clients is, what are family perspectives or people who are close to them? What do they think about your problem? Because that can give me a lot of insight on who your social supports are, how you have used or not used those supports, what other people are seeing. That might also give me a clearer picture about what I might be seeing in the session as well. I also may want to know what they have done to help themselves, right? Whether or not you've sought therapy services in the past, that can tell me about whether or not you're new to this. So maybe I don't need to set up and scaffold a first session for you if you've already done this. Or if therapy has not worked in the past, why? And what are some assumptions or misconceptions or maybe things that we might be able to do to make this better for you?
Yeah. It's a two-way street, right? You, as a client, you need to find a good therapist and a good match. As a therapist, you need to be a good match for your client. Maybe exactly where they are and what they're dealing with isn't something that there might be someone who's better suited for them, right?
Yeah.
And so we want to provide the best care that we can, and it is a two-way street. Honesty, openness, transparency, all of those things are crucial. Probably through the whole process, but certainly at the intake. And people can trust the counselors at Crosswinds to keep that information private. We are HIPAA compliant. We have all of those concerns buttoned up. So there's nothing for them to fear in that way.
Right. And we have tons of counselors here. I mean, on our website, we list out our specialty areas, our interests, things that even our education, things that we've maybe been certified in, specialty areas. Those things are crucial for determining whether or not it's a good fit. And if it's not, a good therapist might be able to say, hey, this is probably not a good fit. I think I know who might be able to help you. Or if you're having relational challenges, maybe we might find a marriage or family therapist that might be able to help you as well. All of those bits and pieces are what they're going to gather during the intake.
Yeah.
Which, if we're not honest and forthcoming, and maybe it doesn't always happen in the first session, right? Maybe 2 to 3 sessions as you get into a rhythm with your therapist, those things get teased out. But the more forthcoming and the more honest that you can be in that first session, the better the process will be. And if it's not a good fit, that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is okay because that happens, right?
Yeah.
Sheronda, thank you. Great thoughts. Sheronda mentioned the website for Crosswinds. It's crosswindscounseling.org. You can see Sheronda and all the tremendous counselors at Crosswinds right there on the website and get matched to somebody that you think might be a good fit, and then meet with them and verify that it is, in fact, a good fit. We encourage you to do that, and we thank you for joining us today on the podcast.
Thanks.
Thanks for watching Conversations with Crosswinds Counseling today. Don't forget to like and subscribe to get more of our podcast. And you can comment in the section below. Perhaps you could share what you'd like us to discuss in future episodes. We've got new episodes coming out every week. So we'll see you next time on Conversations with Crosswinds Counseling.